ABC 24, how's the mic check? ABC 24, is audio good? How's the mic check? ABC 24, we good?
Good morning. My name is Kristen Clark, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. I am joined by Reagan Fondren, Acting U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Tennessee. Based on a comprehensive investigation of the City of Memphis and the Memphis Police Department, the Justice Department has found a pattern or practice of conduct that violates people's civil and constitutional rights. Our investigative team includes career attorneys and staff from the Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and more than a dozen experts who specialize in police department management, use of force, statistics, and other areas. This investigation was comprehensive and exhaustive. We interviewed dozens of police department officers and many city employees, as well as hundreds of community members and local organizations. We reviewed hundreds of incidents, watched hundreds of body-worn camera videos, read thousands of documents, and conducted statistical analyses of police data regarding officer activities and enforcement. Based on this investigation, we found that the police in Memphis use excessive force, that they stop, search, and arrest people unlawfully, that their policies have a discriminatory effect on Black people, and that they discriminate against people with behavioral health disabilities. Furthermore, we are also concerned that MPD officers unnecessarily escalate encounters with some of the most vulnerable members of this community, its children. Many dedicated police officers in Memphis regularly risk their lives to keep people safe and to protect their rights. The practices I described, however, violate the Constitution and federal law. They harm and demean people, and they promote distrust, undermining the fundamental safety mission of a police department. The city and police department can and must correct these issues. First, the police department must stop using excessive force. Officers often make tough choices in stressful circumstances, but in Memphis, we have found that officers often use unwarranted, serious force in response to low-level violations or traffic offenses. For example, officers tackled a man and held him down by his neck for littering in a park. Officers routinely punish people who flee or don't immediately follow directions. Second, the police department must end unlawful stops, searches, and arrests. Without reasonable suspicion or probable cause to believe the people they stop have contraband, or are dangerous, or are a flight risk, officers often frisk, search, handcuff, or hold them. For example, police detained a Black man outside of a dollar store and struck him in the leg with a baton and pepper sprayed him in the face. Dollar stores in the area had seen a spate of robberies, but police had no reason to suspect that this man had anything to do with them. Further, without evidence that someone's car contains drugs or weapons, officers often tow and impound the vehicles. Third, the police department must stop policies that have a disproportionate effect on Black people in this community. We uncovered racial disparities that cannot be explained by differences in driving behavior. We found that MPD cites or arrests Black adults for marijuana possession at 5.2 times the rate of white adults, based on data from 2018 to 2023. Police cite Black drivers for equipment violations like tinted windows at several times the rate of white drivers. And between 2018 and 2023, they arrested 121 Black children for disorderly conduct, compared to just one child during that time period. Fourth, the city and the police department must stop discriminating in their response to people with behavioral health disabilities. When someone in Memphis calls 911 for a medical emergency, medical professionals respond. But if someone calls 911 for a behavioral health emergency, the police respond, even when there is no evident safety risk. One woman encountered police officers 169 times over 5 years. In nearly 95% of these encounters, there were no criminal charges. Instead, police brought her to hospital care. Crisis intervention teams began in Memphis with officers specifically trained in responding to behavioral health calls. Nevertheless, we found that even these officers still used force without justification and without first trying to resolve situations peacefully. One crisis team member acquired the nickname Taserface for his inordinate use of the tool. These team members routinely escalated encounters and used unnecessary force against people with behavioral disabilities, even children. Crisis intervention officers taunted, threatened, and used force against an 8-year-old boy with a history of mental health treatment. Children often suffer harsh treatment from the Memphis Police Department. Officers approach kids aggressively, they use profane language with them, and inflict needless, unreasonable force on them. In one especially disturbing case, a 16-year-old black girl called the police to report that she had been assaulted. When officers arrived on the scene, she declined to hand over her phone. The police handcuffed her and she became agitated. The officers responded by threatening her. Ultimately, they grabbed her and pushed her onto the ground. This kind of encounter potentially harms our children more than the similar conduct harms adults, creating risk of serious long-term harm such as post-traumatic stress, diminished academic performance, or future delinquent behavior. The misconduct that we observe offends the dignity of Memphis residents. It creates stigma and trauma. The practical results of the police department's misconduct often include loss of transportation and consequently employment and separation of families. But let me be clear, these tactics do not make Memphis safer. Discriminatory policing erodes the relationship between the community and the police, making it harder for law enforcement to do their jobs to detect and solve crime or promote public safety. The violations our investigation uncovered stem from Memphis Police Department's deficient policies, supervision, training, and accountability systems. For example, the department uses traffic stops as a crime reduction strategy, but has not adequately supervised those traffic stops or meaningfully assessed whether this approach actually reduces crimes or violates rights. Further, officers lack clear guidance on what they can and cannot do. Supervisors have ignored or excused clear legal violations. The department does not conduct thorough, objective investigations into alleged misconduct. And when it does identify issues, the process undermines findings and minimizes misconduct. The city has noted the cost of police reform and consent decrees, but the pattern or practice of constitutional violations our investigation identified costs the city too, and will not be stopped by hopeful words or preliminary changes. Achieving meaningful constitutional policing reform costs time and resources, but not implementing systemic reforms also imposes enormous cost in terms of citizens' rights that are trampled, personal and financial costs in injuries and deaths due to excessive, unnecessary use of force, cost in diminished public safety, and millions of dollars in legal judgments against the city due to constitutional violations. When the Justice Department works with police departments to achieve reform, these costs decrease. For example, our work in cities such as Seattle, Albuquerque, and Baltimore has led not only to declines in use of excessive force, but also reductions in violent crime. We stand ready to continue working with the city. The people of Memphis deserve fair, transparent, non-discriminatory constitutional policing. Nothing less. We are prepared to work together to write a new chapter for this city. But make no mistake, the pattern or practice of misconduct that we found in Memphis must end. And federal law authorizes us to sue for an injunction if necessary to accomplish that objective. Ensuring lawful, non-discriminatory, transparent, and effective policing is a top priority for the Justice Department. Let me now just talk about the sum total of our work. Since January of 2021, the department has launched 12 pattern or practice investigations into law enforcement agencies. We also are enforcing 16 pre-existing agreements with law enforcement agencies across the country. These collective efforts are resource and time intensive, but have fueled real reforms, including most recently in Seattle, Baltimore, Albuquerque, and more. I want to thank those in Memphis who worked with us. I want to thank the leaders, advocates, and family members who provided helpful information during our investigation. Memphis is the heartland of civil rights advocacy, and the people of Memphis deserve to feel safe. They deserve to feel safe in their homes, their neighborhoods, their cars, especially when you encounter police officers. I'll now turn the floor over to Acting U.S. Attorney Reagan Fondren.
Thank you, Assistant Attorney General Clark. My name is Reagan Fondren, and I am the Acting U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Tennessee. I stand before you as a native Memphian. The city is my home. I love Memphis, and I am committed to doing the work that it will take for our city to be a safe place for all people. We have a long history of civil rights organizing and community engagement. Those who marched for civil rights, sat in at lunch counters, and kneeled at churches sacrificed so that we would live by one rule of law, so that the same law would apply to all people, regardless of race, gender, or socioeconomic background. When the Department of Justice opened this investigation in July of last year, we promised to be thorough and objective, to follow the facts wherever they lead, and that is exactly what we did. This process and these findings uncovered one thing on which I believe we can all agree. Our city has a lot of work to do. The resounding conclusion from this investigation is that there is a significant disconnect in the culture, communication, and directives that drive our city's law enforcement and the lived experiences and perspectives of the citizens of this district. It is a disconnect that erodes trust and makes our community less safe, but it is one that we have the power to fix. Memphians are rightly concerned with the gun violence and violent crime. They are also rightly concerned about the collective approach that we must take to tackle these issues. A collective approach includes law enforcement and citizens. Investigating and solving crime requires cooperation and engagement from the community, partnering with community members and responding to the problems that they face. It requires the community's trust. Without that trust, policing becomes less effective and far more dangerous for both officers and the people that they protect. That is why it was crucial that DOJ investigators hear directly from community members about their interactions with officers, the effect of MPD's practices, and their views on public safety in Memphis. The investigative team conducted extensive community outreach, including holding in-person and virtual community meetings. The team met with community members, advocates, union officials, criminal defense attorneys, prosecutors, judges, and service providers. We are grateful for everyone who shared their experiences and perspectives with us. We could not have completed this investigation without you. As part of this report, we recommend remedial measures to address the violations we found. These measures include improvements to policies, training, supervision, and accountability. These measures are just a starting point, a framework for a more detailed set of changes. We are committed to working with Mayor Young, Chief Davis, the Memphis Police Department, and our Memphis partners to move forward. I hope that there will be ongoing conversations with city leadership as to our next steps. To their credit, they did not wait for our findings report to make changes. Last year, before we opened our investigation, the city and MPD released hours of unedited camera footage of officers' encounter with Tyre Nichols. MPD swiftly fired 7 officers, and Chief Davis disbanded the Scorpion unit. Mayor Young has been transparent about the importance of a comprehensive approach to public safety, effective coordination among city agencies, and partnership with community members and public safety efforts. As we move forward, you can still expect our team of federal prosecutors to take on tough cases, whether those involve violent crime, drug trafficking, illegal guns, national security, hate crimes, or holding people in authority accountable for violations of the law. We will continue to work with law enforcement agencies, including MPD, to enforce criminal law and keep people safe. We look forward to working with the city, MPD, and the community to ensure that the city and police department protects the rights, safety, and dignity of all of its residents.
We have time for a few questions.
Yes. In terms of the timing of the release of the findings, how important was it to get the investigation completed before the inauguration of Donald Trump? Presidency could change the way these types of investigations look in the future, or even if these types of civil rights investigations exist at all.
The mission of the Department of Justice is to protect civil rights for all people. So the career employees of the Department of Justice, the federal prosecutors of the United States Attorney's Office will continue that mission through any administration.
Sorry, Daily Memphian. Sorry. No, one question, please. Daily Memphian?
Okay.
I can't see.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll
Go
give
ahead.
the Memphis. In terms of injunction, you mentioned when would the Department of Justice sue for such an injunction?
I will underscore that the city has been very cooperative during the course of this investigation. So we look forward to working with the city to figure out our next steps. We are pleased that the city has brought a collaborative spirit to this process to date, and look forward to figuring out how we can work together to address the very severe violations we have identified.
CBS. Thank you, Mr. Wilborn. My question to you, the city of Memphis has said that they will not enter an agreement in principle to negotiate a consent decree. First of all, they're saying that they're doing this because they're claiming they didn't have enough time to review, and the word they used also was vet your findings. What is your response to that? Did they have enough time, or is it normal to go into these agreements without municipalities to do so?
Our goal ultimately is to fix the problem. Our goal is to ensure fair, constitutional, and non-discriminatory policing force for the city of Memphis. We hope to work with the city to implement the necessary reforms, to implement the remedial measures that have been recommended in the report. The city now has the report and can review it, and we hope to meet with them to move forward in the future.
Box 13.
Hi, Kayla Solomon, Fox 13. So one of the other reasons cited by the city of Memphis was they felt this investigation was much shorter than other time-practicing investigations. They said it was 17 months as opposed to 2 to 3 years. What is the reason why this one is a little shorter than other investigations?
We follow the facts and apply the law. Here we were exhaustive. I mentioned the countless, body-worn camera footage, video that we reviewed, interviews that we conducted, documents that we examined, data that we analyzed, experts that we worked with. We left no stone unturned during the course of our investigation, and the report that we are publicizing today lays bare the extent of the findings of violations of law that we have uncovered.
Commercial appeal.
Hi. So, in the past, the state has overturned some of the reforms that Memphis has tried to institute, thinking about bans on contextual stops. Is there any concern from DOJ and your team that without a federal consent decree, any changes that the
This is not a new issue. In every jurisdiction where we have uncovered violations of the Constitution and federal law, we've been able to work cooperatively with officials to figure out how to correct those violations. And we're confident that we can do the same here in Memphis.
Okay, yes. Do you trust or believe that the city and MPD will be able to make needed reforms without an agreement?
I'll start with saying that prior to the institution of this investigation, they did begin making changes as we referenced. The investigation, however, does not reveal small changes that need to be made. They are a pattern and a practice which requires significant changes and significant investments in reform. We will continue to speak with city leadership, lay out our plan for their ability to institute these reforms, and we will see what the city's response will be.
University of Memphis?
Yes, thank you. Hi. Should this become an absolute case that the city of Memphis will not participate in a consent decree, could that result in any loss of federal funding?
The statute that we are using here, 34 U.S.C. 12601, authorizes the Justice Department to file suit. So that would be the recourse. But we are very hopeful that we will be able to continue to work cooperatively with the city to address the very real and significant violations of law and the Constitution that we have uncovered.
ABC?
Hi, Leah Williams. You mentioned that the technical leasing and practices seen here don't actually code for these violence. So what type of police tactics would you recommend that actually do those things?
So I actually noted examples of success, examples of communities across the country where consent decrees have brought about significant change and transformation. In Seattle, for example, the police, after we came in and instituted a consent decree, the police have reduced the use of force in crisis incidents to less than 2% of encounters. In Baltimore, after the tragic death of Freddie Gray, they overhauled their fleet of transportation vehicles, data collection mechanisms, policies and training, and most recently only had 11 reported injuries during over 16,000 encounters. In Albuquerque, nearly 5% of the calls to the police are now diverted to Albuquerque Community Safety, which sends teams of civilian responders to help people with behavioral health needs. The police chief describes the consent decree as the best thing that's ever happened to the department. So consent decrees across the country have a track record of success, help bring about change and reform, and we are confident that a consent decree can help forge a new chapter for the city of Memphis.
Last question, NBC?
Jerry Aston, Action News 5. I know you said you interviewed residents about their experience with police, but the MPD officers gave you specific examples of how they felt things were unjust or had enough discrimination from their perspective.
Yeah. We absolutely spent significant time with the rank and file of Memphis PD, participated in ride-alongs. We heard from them about the challenges that they face, the change that they want to see. So hearing from the community and law enforcement was critical to how we approach this investigation.
Any specifics about the MPD officers and what they may have seen that support your findings?
And we provide an overview of what we learned from police officers in the report that we have publicized.
Thanks all.